Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting. Do we have someone echoing? Yes, we do. If you can check if you're muted, please. Everyone good? There we go. My name is Tim McGonigal. I'm the chair of the Committee of the Whole, and I welcome you to today's proceedings. First of all, I would like to acknowledge with gratitude that we, the CBRD, are on the unceded ancestral territories of the Quw'utsun, Malahat, Subasset, Halalt, Penelakut, Snaminas, Layaxan, Pakwitchin, Dididot, and Patchidot nations, whose people have walked gently here for thousands of years. Also like to acknowledge National Kitten Day. You will get a daily calendar update from me at each time I do these meetings, so be prepared. With that, Ms. Boyd, please.
Thank you, Chair. May I please have the approval of the agenda?
Moved, seconded, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Thank you very much. Ms. Boyd.
Number 2, adoption of the minutes, Committee of the Whole meeting of June 26, 2024 be adopted.
Mr. Martman, I'll look to you online to see if there's any errors or omissions. I see you shaking your head, so looking for a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you. We move to public input period. The public input period is to offer the public an opportunity to comment on agenda items before the committee considers the item. The public input period procedure policy allows for an allotment of 15 minutes where the speaker is welcome to comment on any items on the agenda up to a maximum of 3 minutes. This excludes items that are or have been subject to a public hearing. Input from the community is valued and appreciated. We request that input is presented in a friendly and respectful manner. Your cooperation in maintaining a safe, respectful, and orderly environment is greatly appreciated.
Good morning. I see you moving to the lectern. Welcome.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. Aisquail Siemna Siea, Natsama Chkwaluan. Together we rise and move forward. I would like to speak to R1 this morning as a resident of Area B. It's a fantastic strategic quarterly report. I wish everyone in my area could read it. It gave me a lot of hope to read about the optimism and the collaboration that's evident. I'm going to use that word a lot. This should be the word of the day today, collaboration, because it outlines not only what's happening now within the current system of governance, but what is hoped for in the future. And I would like to land my comments today on item 2.0 under our commitments, which says to serve, strengthen, and connect Cowichan communities through collaborative governance. So there's a number of strategies there. I really like what it says, as you can imagine, about improving the website and the outward-facing information portal. I love that staff are so responsive here. So not only is all of this outlined, but someone like me can attend in person and request a printed copy at any time of any document from downstairs, and they find a way to make those things happen so that we have accessibility of information. So this is all the kudos, the good stuff. I really just want to applaud all the staff that had a hand in making reports like this, and every department that diligently documents their work, because people like me can learn and also maybe even suggest improvements. So, Mr. Chair, you can imagine how dismayed I was. I was really discouraged because in our local newspaper for Area B, there was an official article written that would suggest that we actually get nothing for the governance model that we currently have, and that the breakdown of votes that we're just one of 16. And I know that from my studies, that's not necessarily the full story because, of course, there's electoral services, there's weighted votes, there's other issues that are dealt with in a very appropriate way. And so, Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering if I can learn more about why something like that would be written. And I really think that the cognitive dissonance that I'm feeling this morning is because the quarterly report is so uplifting of the organization. It is so positive and so well-written that I'm really concerned that this information is not getting out, and instead we're reading what we did in our local paper for the July issue of the Focus. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the kudos to staff on the report. We also echo those as a board. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. We're moving to 4 delegations. Sarah Dent, Executive Director, co-founder of Young Agrarians, regarding BC Land Matching Program.
Good morning. We'll get the PowerPoint up, I believe. Just so you're aware, you have 10 minutes. Should you need more, we can extend at the will of the board. Committee, sorry.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. We really want to thank the CVRD for supporting Young Agrarians and the BC Land Matching Program over the past 6 years. We're here to do a quick presentation and answer any questions, and thank you all for your time. So, for anybody unfamiliar with Young Agrarians, sorry, I'm just trying to change the slide here. Oh, yes. Okay, great. Thank you. That's good information. The arrows are not working.
Right-hand arrow.
Wow. This is like an extra keyboard.
You can try this too. Click.
Just clicking?
Yeah.
Okay,
Now
now it's
they work.
working. I just needed you. That's what I needed. Okay. Young Agrarians is the largest educational resource network for new and young ecological farmers in Canada. We have expanded enormously. We now have 27 staff. We're working between BC and Manitoba. We just hired our first Ontario employee. So the programming work that we've done in BC has been really foundational and is inspiring the country and enabling growth as we work on this really huge challenge, which is trying to grow new farmers and support new and young people to get into a really hard industry. It's a very underinvested demographic, new farmers. There's not a lot of programming available for those farmers. There's a lot more available for established farms. So what is unique about Young Agrarians is that we're a farmer-to-farmer organization. So all of our programming frameworks have been designed based on a farmer-to-farmer model because farmers grow farmers. So yeah, it's an exciting time for us organizationally, and it's wonderful to come and check in today and be here because we're doing so much work and things are growing at a very fast pace right now. So this is our Grow a Farmer program pillars. We do online engagement, educational events on farms and off farms throughout the year. We do an on-farm apprenticeship training program, which we just launched in BC. If you know any farms that might be interested in participating in that, we do land access and transition work, as well as business mentorships. So in 2023, these are the numbers of farmers, farms, landholders, and organizations that we worked with. So the BC Land Matching Program is why we're here today with the support of the CVRD and other funders. This is our program funnel. This is basically over since the program provincialized in 2018. These are the numbers of people that we've been able to engage, and you can look at it as like a funnel, like a marketing funnel. We need to engage a certain number of people to boil it down to actual matches on the land and new farm businesses born. So to date, we've done 336 land matches on over 12,000 acres, and we have a team of 8 people working on the land matching program across BC, including a co-op developer, and we also do some reconciliation training and programming for farmers in our network. So it's a really beautiful time for the program. We're kind of at peak operations right now, and we're also trying to punch up into the federal agriculture scene. We are working in Ottawa. I'm the new co-chair of the New Entrant Skills Trade Development Table, and we're trying to pave the road for the next federal provincial policy framework, which is in another 5 years. We're trying to get new entrants on the agenda because they've been left off for a really long time. So just looking at Vancouver Island and what we've been able to do here on the island and Gulf Islands is 100 land matches to date. That's a nice number. Completed on 420 acres. And I think most people here understand that the type of programming work that we're doing is slow growth community economic development. It takes a long time to basically grow new farmers, get them from people who are curious to people who are actually working on farms to people who are wanting to start their farm businesses, get on the land, and hopefully survive business startup and be viable in a longer term window. So when we look at our program now, we describe it as a provincial incubator. It's really enabling people to get onto the land and have their first experiences running their own businesses. So since 2018 in the CVRD, we have done 23 matches on 80 acres. And so back to the slow growth model of looking at succession in the area, making sure that we have future farmers in the CVRD. Because of the CVRD support, about 20% of the land matcher's time goes into this region. So that's the full funnel that's happening here in the area. So 23% of total Vancouver Island matches, and 7% of BC happening in the CVRD. So land matching services are quite comprehensive. We have really talented land matchers that are wrangling large geographies of people. So our Vancouver Island land matcher, Kiyomi Ito, she is quite exceptional. She's an agrologist and a cow whisperer, and she's managing this funnel. So they're quite talented people because they're doing everything from outreach and communications and organizing events to get people together in real time, to also building up the inventory of available acres, and then doing the more deep work with the landholders and working through people's vision. Is the new farmer ready to actually start their farm business? There's a lot in terms of working through the challenges and puzzle pieces to do the actual matching work, and that level of technical assistance is very highly regarded in the community. It's really, we're in 2024 market failure conditions, and so a new person coming into the sector who has someone that they can even just talk to, who's a sounding board that can really help them get their feet underneath them, has been a really incredible thing that we've been able to offer. And we can't solve the, Young Agrarians is one organization. There's big challenges in the sector, of course, climate change, drought cycles, inflation, rising cost of agricultural inputs, insurance. Labor is a huge issue in agriculture now that everybody's talking about. Housing is a huge challenge. The more housing you have, the more farmers you will grow. And of course, the big one here that everyone's talking about is the water licensing. We're seeing the impacts of the 2016 Water Act and how it's playing out now in our communities and the moratorium on the Cook-Sila watershed. So I think the main piece here that staff were doing their due diligence on is that we've adjusted the deliverables. Historically, we've been able to make 3+ matches in the CVRD, and in the last program cycle, we were only able to do 1. The staff person is still putting the same hours into the area. It's over $20,000 of service that's coming in each year to the CVRD area, but we don't want to put ourselves on the hook as an organization for these externalities that are having an impact on our ability to actually match land. We will continue to do the matching and work for it, and hopefully we'll have more in the pipeline this year, but so basically, it's a request to shift deliverables for CVRD from 3 to 7 to 1 to 3 for the year, but we will still continue to put the hours and time into the region and work through some of these challenges. So am I at time? 1 more minute. So just a piece there for you folks. I do believe that the CVRD, with the impacts that are happening right now around the licensing I do think the CVRD should actually put a delegation forward to the province to talk through some of the water issues for the area. These water issues are universal to farms around the province that either do or don't have water licenses. A lot of farms are really having to work on getting their infrastructure in place for the future, and now is the time to be proactive about these watershed issues. So the other piece for the CVRD would be around farmer supportive zoning bylaws and housing policies that could really enable this area to continue to be a magnet for lots. There's people from all over the country that want to move to Vancouver Island and farm. So the more there are some of these niche alternative options for things like tiny homes and other housing options for young people or new people wanting to farm here, the more that will happen. But it's a challenging sector, and we really have to be looking towards the future to our what's coming in the next 10 or 20 years. The things we do now are building that future. So thank you all for your time, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you kindly. I'll take a list. I have Director Morrison, Director Wilson. Just like to acknowledge Directors Douglas, Martman, Toporowski, Staples, and McClinton are joining us virtually. So I will look for your hands. If we can lower the,
Hi.
I'm sorry.
I just want to acknowledge also this is on the staff report on this later in the agenda. So I'm here to answer questions also related to that staff report if that's appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Reardon. So if we can lower the presentation so I can see all my online people, please. And while we're doing that, I have Director Douglas online. Director Deck, I believe, has her hand up, looking around. And we'll go to the questions. First of all, Director Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. Great presentation, and love the work you do. It's clearly challenging, and got some comments for when we address the staff report a little later. And it sounds to me like in your role, you're not so much a specialist, but a Jill of all trades, because you spoke very well on the housing crisis and the impacts of that. That was part of my question as to how are you housing not only the people that want to land match and get into it, but the people that they will need to help them to be successful in their endeavors. But the one question that I wanted to pose to you, because you know, in the western part of our regional district, we're not known for a whole bunch of farming activity, but as it turns out, there's a whole bunch of ALR designated lands, some ag lands as well. I refer to them kind of as the phony baloney ALR lands, because they were often put in as a result of land swaps in other areas. But having said that, there is potential, given the different technology and the ability for people to farm differently than just the way they did on the land for, you know, millennia. And also, there's availability of water in the West region. So is there any initiative to talk to the major industrial and forest landowners about them making lands available for your program? Because there are those lands there. They are, you know, if they're not in an active cycle or recently been harvested, there may be potential. So has there been any thought given to that?
Hi, I'm Darcy Smith, the program manager for the BC Land Matching Program, and a little more connected and on the ground. And what I would say there is, we have at different times explored some of those opportunities, sometimes for beekeepers who are looking for those more forestry lands. And we would, I think, welcome more opportunities to connect with folks. I think the folks at this table, you're really deeply connected in on your communities, and we would love any leads, any introductions, tips on how to reach out to those types of landholders to start those conversations. Yeah.
Thank you, and I have added Director Staples online, so I have Director Wilson next.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sarah, and I forgot, I'm terrible.
Darcy.
Thank you, Darcy. Great presentation, and from what I can make out, it's a great program as well. And with the little chat that we had earlier on there, I did sort of give you the heads up that I would be asking a couple of questions here. My particular area does border on the Cox Isla watershed, which, as you know, is in trouble there at the moment. And I've got a number of questions here which may actually be more in line with what economic development is going to give, but I'll ask them for the time being, and then if they are for later on, then we can switch over to that. Barry can let us know. And one of the biggest problems that the farmers have brought to me as well is the options for housing on their land. I suspect that may well be an economic development one. But I think you've answered the other one here. And one of the things that's come up is the restrictions that the CVRD may be putting on ALR, you know, by limiting the housing, etc., and all the rest of it. And one of the biggest things is, where do we get the money from to help the Cox Isla watershed store water? Is there anything, who do we talk to? Economic development might know this one, so it could cross over here. Who do we talk to about getting the huge amounts of money that we need to build the storage areas that we've got here?
I think back to the concept that CVRD could put some kind of farmer counselor group together and approach the province with these challenges. The Investment Agriculture Foundation of BC does offer the water infrastructure grants, so they'll have a direct line in on that bigger pool of capital, and then also just conveying to the province the impacts of the licensing process on the region, I think is actually really important feedback right now. The act was put in 2016, and where we're at provincially around this regulation around the watershed, I don't think that farmers were, farm needs were considered. Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba have minimum liter usage allowances, which if those had been implemented in BC, a lot of farms wouldn't have needed to go through this licensing process. So I think agriculture has been left out, and now it's being caught up in the storm along with all the other challenges that agriculture is facing currently. So I do think that the voices and the vocalization of these challenges is really important, and that could lead to some potential pot of money for infrastructure. I definitely don't have the expertise to indicate where, but I do know that the province might have some more ideas.
That's great, thank you. And
I'll
just
give
a
you
quick
one more and then I'll go
Thank
to
you,
the
sir.
rest of my list.
And again, with the farmers' input, this is an important one because this is one which has been brought up over and over again, and I'll talk to ECDEV. But Mr. Chair, just to make one more comment on this, it's very important that we involve the farmers here. We can't leave them out. They've got too much at stake, and we've got a huge stake in it as well. They're the ones that are going to produce what we need. Thank you.
Yeah, so fall, winter for farmers. Talk to them in the winter.
Thank you very much. Director Douglas next online, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple questions. One is, I appreciate the challenges with matching up landowners with prospective farmers in the Cox Isla watershed with the issues with the water licensing. But the Cowichan region, as Director Morrison referenced, there are other parts of the region that do have significant amount of ALR land. As Director Morrison noted, out Cowichan Lake, there's some. In North Cowichan, we've got over 5,000 hectares of ALR land and other agricultural land that isn't in the ALR. I know up in North Oyster Diamond and in Saltaire, there's quite a bit of land there as well. Recognizing the challenges with the land match in the Cox Isla watershed, would there not be some way to just really focus your efforts on these other parts of the region to continue to meet that 3 to 7 matches target per year?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think the Cox Isla watershed, the moratorium on new licenses, is extremely challenging. And across Vancouver Island and BC, all the watersheds, The process to apply for a new license, even when they are available, is in a lot of cases still a huge barrier with regards to the timelines and cost. And so even without a moratorium, a lack of an existing water license on a farm can still constitute a big barrier to matching. That's where we're really looking for land opportunities that have an existing water license. And we would absolutely, yes, be focusing outreach efforts on areas in the CVRD outside of the Cook Silo watershed to hopefully leverage some of those existing water licensed land opportunities to create some matches. And really looking at the deliverables, not wanting to overpromise and underdeliver in the context of the challenges with water licenses. Of course, we hope that we will achieve more than one match per year, but we are not sure that that it is possible.
But are you seeing the water licensing challenges with other parts of the region as well? Like we've heard obviously a lot about Cook Silo, but we haven't heard the same concerns about Chemainus watershed or some of the other parts of our region.
We're seeing the water license challenge across BC, and on Vancouver Island especially, it's across the whole island we're seeing challenges with water licenses. We hear stories from farmers every year, and last year across Vancouver Island, from Souk to Comox, and everywhere in between, farmers were coming to us and saying they had, people showing up on the land and issuing stop irrigation orders, really difficulty obtaining information about water licenses from the government, a lot of fear. So farmers are assessing risk on an ongoing basis about water licensing, and the risk is higher for farmers on Vancouver Island, where the drought has been severe and water restrictions are being put into place. So it is a more intense challenge on Vancouver Island and an even more intense challenge in the CVRD, but across BC we're seeing these same concerns from farmers.
Mr. Chair, could I ask one more follow-up really quickly?
Absolutely.
The other question is just with regards to our funding contribution towards the program. I think we're all excited to play a part in supporting all the great work you're doing. My one concern, though, is based on the information provided, it looks like the funding sources are mainly from the province and then from our regional district, but I didn't see any contributions from any of the other regional districts on the island. And part of my concern there is if there's going to be 17 land matches per year and we're only getting one of them, it would seem a bit unfair for the only region contributing. But again, not sure if I read those financial statements correctly, so hoping for some clarity.
Rob, it's a great question. As we were building the program, there was a lot of fundraising to get the establishing people in. We did a lot of work going around the province and going to all the local governments. In the end, the program costs around $650,000 a year to deliver at our current staffing levels. And the CVRD came in early days with Amy Melmock, who's now in Nova Scotia. So you folks came in early days, you had the vision, and you came on board. And basically for the CVRD, there'll still be about $20,000 worth of staff time going into the area for the 10,000. It's just that you folks are part of the kind of team of funders that we have, but we haven't really focused anymore on regional districts and local governments because the fundraising there has been a lot more complicated than it has been, and we've been really fortunate to have a strong relationship with the BC Ministry of Agriculture that write the big check for the program. So I can't really, it's just a time thing. We focusing local governments and local government fundraising, and the results from it are just more complicated. So the CVRD will still get great value for the money invested, but our strategy right now is not really to go around to all the local governments. If at some point we might consider getting a second land matcher for Vancouver Island if we have the capacity to go and do some more of that local government relationship building. Does that make sense to you? It is a good question.
Yeah, that helps. I guess the one concern though is just if there are those 17 matches per year, if we're only potentially getting one. And I do recognize the challenges your team is facing, but I just would love to see a bit of bit of a higher number if possible.
We will do our best. We will absolutely do our best. We'll continue to put the same amount of time in on a staffing level, and we will hopefully get to 3 matches again this year. So fear not, we're working our butts off to deliver on our hopeful promises. Our staff are it's a pretty stressful job being a land matcher. It's quite intensive. They're managing a large volume of clients, and we're actually just trying to make the role friendlier for our staff so that they're not bending over backwards to produce results when they're already kind of bending over backwards to produce results in a sector that's kind of underserved and under-resourced with a whole bunch of challenges that people are facing. So I hope that makes sense to folks here at the table today. It's a complicated space to be in and do that work. So we're not trying to undersell, we're just trying to be realistic about what we can deliver as we move forward.
Great, thank
you.
you very much. I would suggest the CBRD was the source of seed funding, so to speak. Right? If you're going to grow farmers, I'm going to seed money. Anyways, I have Director Deck next, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really glad to hear that you've got a what is it?
Co-op developer.
Yes, I was going to ask about that because that spreads the work, well, at least if I understand. So can you explain a little more about the co-op developer?
The BC Co-op Association and a number of other groups were able to get an investment from the provincial government into new co-op startup. And so the BC Co-op Association had promised agricultural deliverables as part of that. So they put some of that provincial funding out to young agrarians. So we have a co-op developer on staff. And basically, she's been developing co-op resources, like legacy resources. So if the funding for her role is not there down the road, there's still a bunch of tools for people to access so that they can move through the co-op development process for farming. So anyway, she's available right now to work with groups and do some co-op consulting, and there's also money there for people who write the co-op memorandums so that they can get incorporated in startup. And so we'll continue to nurture that relationship with the BC Co-op Association, and hopefully we'll have a co-op developer on staff long-term because it's been invaluable. Lots of new young people are interested in the co-op model, but like starting a farm business, they have to go through the motions of learning about what it would mean to actually formally set up a co-op and make those agreements and legally register. So her name is Emmy Doe. And if you know any people that are in that kind of co-op development model, then we can provide some staff time for the technical assistance side.
Well, that's wonderful, thank you. And just a final comment on the subject of challenges getting a water license. And I guess the challenges to watersheds are really the reason why there's a challenge to getting water licenses. So, yes, that's a big problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, climate change and drought and freshwater availability, these are our long-term problems for the region.
And yes, and human activity.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I have Director Staples online next, please. Are you there, Director Staples?
My apologies. I was trying to open my other phone. I have two phones, and sometimes I forget which one I'm actually on. I just wanted to just thank you for the update, and it's just really good to see the difference over the last couple of years you've been reporting.
If you can hear me, Director Staples, we're having...
I think it's for continuing to do this really important work. Yeah, I can hear you.
We can't hear you, Director Staples. You're cutting in and out. I'm not sure if it's your service there. So I will pass on you momentarily. I'll see if you can reconnect and then come back to you if that is okay. Apparently it is. Director Stone, please.
Thanks. Lots of thoughts, but just off the hop, really thankful for all the work you've done and the seed funding that we've contributed to the work. You did mention you have like a significant amount of funding and a close connection with the Ag Ministry. Have you had these conversations around the challenges within that ministry? You'd think that they would be able to be strong advocates for the agricultural community when it comes to water challenges. What was the, like, you know, I know government is siloed too often, but what's their response to some of the challenges around the water licensing?
So basically, organizationally, we produce these enormous reports for the ministry, and we put like the section on challenges in the sector is like almost as long as the
rest of the report.
Because they, you know, everybody wants someone to solve the problems, right? So the ministry did put together a water committee, like a multi-department, like a cross-ministry group together. And again, back to like, we need to keep feeding the feedback and putting the pressure on for these pieces. Young Agrarians doesn't have a lot of time to do the kind of policy advocacy pieces around these massive issues, which is why I really think that if there are more voices at the table, it's a good thing for agriculture. So we have put in like very detailed information in there, and it has gone in, and we have been bugging our staff counterparts there for feedback on that, because we know that it's going to impact our program in the long term. On the one hand, we're saying we want new farms and we want to replace labor in the sector and we want succession. And then on the other hand, we're saying if you don't have a water license, you're out of luck. So it's a bit of a complicated value proposition there to be trying to kind of advance the sector and make sure that people can enter, and then also say, but you can't access the water. So we've done our best on our end, and really think that there need to be more people involved there.
Yeah, I guess my response to that, and I think the friction and the challenge we're going to come into is that the long-term issue isn't climate change and drought. The Coax Isla may be like a canary in a coal mine, but the canary was telling us many years ago what was coming. That's an immediate term challenge, and the biggest challenge is some of the best farmland seems to have the biggest challenge with water availability, and that's not a licensing issue, that's just a reality of no water. You can't license water that isn't there. So how do we find, you know, we can talk about licensing issues, but if the water's not available to license, then the licensing isn't the problem. It's actually the availability of water. And so going through the Coax Isla water use planning process with the government, with the provincial government and Cowichan tribes and all the stakeholders, I think is really important. But I think the challenge will be, and I think Director Douglas mentioned it, you know, finding those farmland match opportunities that aren't in those areas where water just isn't available, where it's not necessarily a licensing issue as much as it's just a fact that there's no water to license, right? And I get that, and I've heard this story around the province of the enforcement folks showing up and saying you can't draw water anymore. But again, it comes down to the climate reality that we have, that if there's not water there to license or to continue to use, it's not a licensing issue. That's just a fact we have to figure out and deal with. So I think I'm happy to support the refocusing that comes up on our later agenda item, but I'm happy to see how we can advocate. I feel like there's so many different water conversations going on right now that we have to find a way to get all of these people talking together. And maybe that Coax Isla water use plan is one place where we can try and bring together First Nations and local government in the province and maybe model how we can have this broader conversation in a good way. Because that's a big part too, is that connection with the First Nations that are concerned about water as well, and how we find out how we can allocate the very limited resources we have. Because as much as I would like, and I keep looking at Director Nicholson because she's more on the ground with this issue in Coates Isla than most of us, but we're not going to solve this challenge, especially in the near term. In fact, it's likely to get worse. So, you know, food security and bringing on the next generation of farmers is so important. Hopefully we can find a way to bring all these different conversations around water and food security and farming together, because it kind of feels like a lot of resources are going into little different pots, and maybe we're not getting the impact we could if we could all come to the same tables, right? So happy to follow up offline. We're not going to solve it in this conversation, but about how we can use what connections we have to try and bring that conversation together. Thanks. And I really appreciate the work, and I love this too. Is this a sticker? I'm trying to peel
Yes.
it off. Okay, it is.
So I think just one quick comment I'll make, and Darcy might have something to follow up here, but us becoming drought specialists is essential. Like, you look at places around the world have way worse drought problems than we do. I've been at international tables talking to people about droughts. So I think we need to keep in context that it's a drought, like we need to be managing for these conditions. And there is somebody on the island, Foster Richardson, who's the drought specialist. So there is a TA person who could be helping to advise some of these farmlands around drought protocols. So we will continue to grow food. We do have water in this region. We just have acute problems during like the highest growing season, right? So those are things we have to adapt to, and it's now, the time is now.
And specific to the work that the Land Matcher does, water licensing aside, helping landholders who are coming into the program assess water availability on their land and whether that will be a suitable opportunity for agriculture has always been part of the technical assistance that the Land Matchers do. And a hugely valuable one. I think we work with landholders who are farmers and understand water for agriculture, and we work with a lot of landholders who are not farmers, especially as we've had this huge exodus from urban areas and more non-farming landholders buying in rural areas, buying farmland as the farming generation retires and isn't able to succeed to a farmer. And the value of a Land Matcher being able to, like Sarah described, our funnel where we're offering a lot of support to everybody who comes in at the top, who inquires, reaches out. Maybe their land isn't suitable for farming in the end, but they get to have support to figure that out and navigate assessing their own vision in land, understand the regulations, understand what they might need to do to get it ready for agriculture. So the services Land Matchers are offering at every stage of the matching process creates a lot of value for folks who are trying to do agriculture in this region.
Thank you. I'm going to try Director Staples again. If you can hear me, can we see if your connection is any better now? Having no reply, I'll go to my next.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
Absolutely, try again.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry about that. No, I was just saying that I just really appreciate how the change over the years that you've been presenting from when you first came to talk about this and the number of farms growing, but also just that, you know, you talked about in your presentation in one of the responses about how this is sort of cutting edge work. And you know, after doing it for so many years, it still is. And it's really important that this work grows, given the changing of climate, given the way that we need to change farming and housing and community and how we live together. So I just really appreciate you being so committed to this effort, and also to the fact that you are now connecting, you know, at a national level. And I believe I heard you mention also in, you know, at international levels as well, with this work that, you know, was really seeded here. I won't use one of Tim's jokes right now, but I just really wanted to acknowledge that and thank you. And I look forward to supporting this work moving forward and seeing, how it grows given the changes that we're facing, because I think this is really creating a model for what is needed in the future of farming.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say the harder this work gets, the more important it is. The harder it is for farmers, the more they need the support, and that's why we're still doing it.
Thank you, Director Staples. Moving to the boots on the ground, as Director Stone said, Director Nicholson, who's the closest to some of the problems here, please.
Thank you. I will be quick. I really like the work you guys do. I just think it's so important. And this whole conversation about water is dear to my heart because I'm in the Cook Sila and I have a little farm, and water's a huge issue, and I've been saying this for years, but people are finally waking up, which is good. We are the canary in the coal mine. It's interesting, I asked about the Chemainus just the other day. We're both watersheds. If you look on the drought portal, you'll see that most of the East Vancouver Island is in drought level 2. Both the Cook Sila and the Chemainus are in drought level 3. The Chemainus, though, doesn't have the same use pressure for agriculture. They don't have as many licenses, and it's a different system. So, that's sort of the Chemainus side of things. I really believe that the best thing that you can be doing is helping on the educational front on dryland farming. And so, I'm good with money going. I'm not so concerned about the land matching anymore. I think the education is where we're at. For dryland farming. And as far as the CVRD goes, we are participating in that Cook Sila sustainability planning process, which is important. And part of that, Jeff Moore came forward with a report a few weeks ago about the CVRD taking the lead in doing a water infrastructure grant proposal for the Cook Sila. So that's important. But, I think people need to realize that there are no silver bullets on the waterfront. Land use has really compromised the watersheds, and the watersheds we really need to change our practices in general, but we have to also learn to adapt to a different situation. And I think because it's the canary in the coal mine, it's why I think it's so important that we get this regional growth strategy initiated, and a regional growth strategy that's based on a really good analysis of our water availability and sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. More of a comment there, no question. Thank you very much. Director Abbott next.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to pass. I think there's been enough dialogue, but before passing, I'd like to thank Ms. Dent and Ms. Smith for a thought-provoking and timely presentation, and it really points us in the right direction. So thank you.
Thank you for peeling that sticker off for Director Stone. He would have been working on that till lunchtime, so we really appreciate that. Moving on, I have Director Justice next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I did actually attend one of your land matching events in Cobble Hill. I think it was maybe last year or something like that. And it's pretty interesting. We now at North Cowichan have an agricultural advisory committee, and I'm getting texts from people saying, oh, we need to have this presentation for our ag committee pretty soon. So we'll try and figure out a way of doing that. I've got a sort of more basic question, I guess. Understanding that there are lots of types of farming, and it may differ by agricultural sector or region, but I'd like to understand a little bit more about the nature of the bottleneck of the funnel. Based on the water license discussion, I'm guessing it's more of an available land shortage in the Cook Sila anyway, but in general for Cowichan, what is the nature of the dance between land shortage, available land shortage, and the availability or interest of new and young farmers?
It is a dance or a game of Tetris or Jenga, maybe one might say, matching farmers and landholders isn't just about having a piece of land in an area and a farmer in an area. There's a lot of complexity that goes into finding the right fit. From the landholders, sure, water license, that's just one little area, but their vision for the land, what farming practices they're open to, what production types they're open to, what their long-term vision is. Will they be selling the land soon? Do they have other plans? Is there housing available is a big one. And then on the farmer's side, enterprise readiness is a term we use to describe the combination of education, experience, and business planning that it sets the foundation for a farmer to be successful once they launch their own business on leased land. And also matching communication styles, personalities. So we have actually pretty good conversion rate overall of about 10% from inquiries to matches. And a lot of the people who inquire, we look at as a success if they come to us and then decide, okay, with more education, I've decided this isn't the right fit for me, instead of maybe putting their land on Kijiji, finding a farmer and figuring that out in August when everyone's like hot and grumpy and things aren't going well, because that's more resources put in on the farmer and landholder side. So we're really looking for quality over quantity, I think, is how I might boil it down, and making sure that all the factors are there for success. Managing risk as much as we can, and risk has increased over the last number of years across the board. Water licenses is one piece of that.
Thank you. If I might just briefly follow up. Part of the reason I asked the question is because I talked to somebody in the Cowichan, in the North Cowichan, who has a large piece of land. It's mostly used for forage crops, and just asked them if they would be interested in exploring it. And their response was, oh, I know about that program, but I understand that they've got way more land than farmers. And I just wanted to get some clarity on whether that's like I mean, it's obviously an oversimplification, but is it true in any basic way?
We have more land seekers inquiring than farmers. Maybe it's about 2 to 1, maybe a little closer than that at this stage. But enterprise-ready farmers who have training and solid business plans can access capital. It would be great to increase the supply of those. And I think training programs for agriculture aren't widely available. So getting people resourced to be able to start farms is one of the pieces we're looking at now. We'll often have someone inquire, we'll refer them out to farm jobs, go and learn on someone else's farm, learn from someone else's mistakes, and then come and start your own business. And they'll come back to us in a year or 2 years when they're more ready for matching. And Sarah mentioned we've recently launched our apprenticeship program here, again looking to increase the supply of farmers who are trained and able to operate farm businesses. The average time to get matched through the program BC-wide is about 7 months. I think Vancouver Island is slightly less than that, maybe 6-point-something months. And that is, some people who get matched right away and some people who don't ever find a match. There's no guarantee that someone will find a match. But when someone is wanting to make land available through the program, we do our best to look at our existing inventory and then cultivate new inquiries through our marketing and outreach strategies. I would encourage them to reach out anyways and just have a conversation. That's where it starts. It doesn't have to go anywhere, but it might go somewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I apologize for any trademark infringements that may occur as I move to my next speaker. Farmer Ben, known as Director Martman, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the presenters. Most interesting to get these annual reports. My question is around local government's lands. Have you ever been able to match with a local government?
Yes, we have, and I think it's an exciting opportunity because there can be a degree of long-term stability knowing that the land isn't up for sale potentially when someone's private life changes. We worked with the City of Kelowna on some city-owned lands there. I think there are some additional challenges with working with institutions, local governments, to be navigated to support both parties that are different from working with private landholders, but we are well equipped to do that, and would love to look at if there are municipally or regionally owned lands that are available for matching.
And it's a great time to be thinking about a CVRD land bank for farming. Certainly.
So you're planting your own seeds now, aren't you?
Always.
So
We're
follow
always
up if I
seed
can,
planting.
Chair.
You tilled the field for us.
And I'm not sure we're into tilling anymore. I thought there was going away from that. Anyways, I digress. One more, if I can. And that is around the deliverables. And I can understand wanting to reduce this one deliverable, but I'm wondering, can you offset it somewhere? Can you increase another one? Can you give some thought to that thing? And what's your ideas?
It's still the same workload. We're still doing the same amount of work in the region. It's just boiling it down to the match. So it's kind of like you guys are still getting twice the amount than what you're paying for the area. And the staff time will stay the same. And we will try and do our very best to come up with any ideas that people have to help us with our funnel to get a better result for the year. So it is top of mind. It will continue to be top of mind, but we have to work within the program structure and our resources. So I'm not really sure how to offset it because we've still driven by all the same pieces. It's just this final outcome that we're having a challenge with. I guess I'm sort of answering your question.
Yeah, you are. And I guess I'm looking, I think as Director Nicholson pointed out, maybe is there a way to shift the deliverables to increasing some more educational opportunities?
Do you have a thought there? 'Cause we're already doing a couple.
Yeah, so maybe I'll just talk about events currently under the purview of the BC Land Matching Program. The educational activities that we do there are focused around land access, and we do across BC in each land matching region. We do one big educational event in the fall and the in-person on-farm networking and educational events in the summer. And on Vancouver Island, we have focused those in the Cowichan Valley due to the funding relationship and partnership we have with CVRD. We host our annual Land Link here every year, and we make sure we host an on-farm event here every year, and that's always been a priority for us and will continue to be a priority for us. I think Sarah and I have been talking with the ECDev, Economic Development team, about increasing the marketing efforts that we're doing. So upping the outreach in collaboration with economic development to get the word out to more people, so have more of a presence in the region. Our hope there is that will generate more engagement across our funnel, of course, driving towards more matches. But there is still a lot of uncertainty there about the results.
So we can offset with increased marketing activities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Director McClinton, first time speaker.
Thank you, Chair. I'll make it quick. My question's sort of been answered. Yeah, just actually kind of a little bit surprised to hear that obviously the water license is part of the issue, but really it's the lack of farmers. I would have thought, as Director Justice said, it would have been the reverse. And as I think about it, it's not just matching farmers, but food production is really the ultimate goal for food security. I would think, perhaps I'm incorrect in thinking that, and I think about a lot of the smaller plots, 2 acres, that, they can grow $2,500 and then they don't have to pay a certain percentage of their taxes. Have we looked at incentivizing in different ways the production of food on the plots and how that might relate to matching the farmers?
I think I would refer that question to the staff report and the economic development team, if that's okay.
Hold that for your next. I will come back to you, Director McClinton, with that question. And I have Director Morrison to close.
This one I hope is kind of simple, but you've got a captive audience here. So on the land availability within local government-owned assets, we have to pay to cut the grass in a lot of our parks, and wouldn't it be nice if there was a land matching that happened when we probably got access to water? So if you were to describe a perfect land site, what would it look like? Because I'm sure if we were to think about our community parks and different holdings, that there's probably a couple opportunities there. So describe what a perfect spot of land would be for matching for a farmer.
Yeah, I would say you're not the only landholders to think about the benefit of not having to mow the lawn as an incentive to connect with us. It's a tough question, actually, to describe the perfect site because there are so many different types of agriculture. Livestock works on larger properties that might not have the same kind of optimal soil or infrastructure for vegetables, but do have fencing, whereas smaller plots with water availability and the option or availability of existing infrastructure, wash stands, coolers, greenhouses, those are attractive to market gardeners. So what I would suggest is if there are potential follow-up conversations we could have about the different types of lands that the different municipalities own, that could perhaps lead to some fruitful next steps there.
Director Ishdas said super quick, so time it.
Yeah, so thank you, Chair, basing on, he's so quick with them, I missed it. Just thinking real quick that I grew up in Alberta and we had all the community pastures, so as to building on Director Morrison's comment there, would that be something where I just think of the good uses of where we're trying to get connectivity and ecosystems is what the ultimate goal of the Parkland Acquisition Fund is community pastures a model that's in BC already, or not, is that something that could be implemented in the CVRD?
Whether it's here or not already, I think absolutely would be a great idea. I love it. Yeah.
And
let's
then
chat.
community pastures where there was a bit of right to roam built into that too. So the farm community kept eyes on the land and managed it, but yet the community was still able to enjoy it. Of course, that depends if there was livestock, how it was involved in there. But I just think of all the community pastures I was in my younger years in Alberta.
I think just coming back to the public comment earlier, collaboration, right? That's what is in our future is collaboration, and I think that's a great example.
Okay, Director Stone.
I was just going to say, Mr. Chair, may I suggest we deal with R2 immediately after this?
And we were about to afford that opportunity to the directors at the conclusion of this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's how you answer politically. First of all, appreciate all the questions and the presentation. As you can tell, we are very enlightened by the opportunities coming forward. And I will just say that I look to Judy Stafford and the Green community and the work that they have done in the past, which has led us to where we are talking about young agrarians and land matching, et cetera. So we may be No. And just to be clear, all humor will be vetted through the chair from here on out. No tilling. But in all honesty, we really appreciate it. And we will realign the agenda to go to R2. Are we okay with carrying on? Let's have more than a golf clap, please.
Yeah.
I think R2, it would, I need a, oh, no,
No, you're good.
okay, I need approval to oh, wow. Okay, we're gonna deal with R2. Director Stone.
I'll move the recommendation.
Move the recommendation, seconder, and seconded. I'll go to Director McClinton, who had a question on that.
Thank you, Chair. I was briefly interrupted, but I'm back. I'm just looking at, there's nobody at the podium. No. There you go. Yeah, my question is just around incentivizing the production of food. I mean, it's my understanding that if you're not in the ALR, you need to grow. I could be totally off on this. So this is just from chatting with small farmers. If you grow $10,000 worth of food, there's some relief with your taxes. And if you're in the ALR, it's $2,500. You know, I just would think that there could be more robust incentives to grow particular food types that don't maybe require lots of water. Yeah, it just seems like we've got more opportunity to incentivize food production, especially on the smaller plots where people are maybe living there because they like the space.
I'm going to ask you to repeat that question because I may have missed a small part of it. I believe you're looking for an understanding of what incentives the CVRD could potentially provide versus the province. Is that correct?
I think I'm just looking for, so hopefully third time's the charm. Yeah, looking for better understanding of the incentive structure for growing food for farms, for small farmers, and what relationship that might play with matching, with the land matching as well. So maybe that's a tough question to answer just on the spot here, but just what your understanding is of the incentives.
My understanding is that the farm status is what determines any tax incentives from the province, and that's based on farm size versus anything else. And I believe properties under 2 acres have a much higher threshold of sales. I believe it's 10,000 versus properties over 2 acres have a threshold, possibly 2,500, if I'm right. For it's at 5 acres. Properties over 5 acres, I'm getting corrected here, have a lower threshold amount of farm sales to get that tax reduction. So that's currently, as I'm aware, the only incentive there is for agriculture in terms of those farm tax sales. Are there other potential opportunities? I would say there are, but all those would come at a cost to the CVRD. So if there's an interest in the CVRD looking at those? I know it's brought up just a little while ago about half in jest, possibly around like a land bank, but I think that is something that could be looked into potentially around the provision of land within the CVRD, either CVRD owned land if there was a desire, or looking to have how we could support agriculture but by providing long-term opportunities for folks if land was gifted to the CVRD or if the CVRD decided to purchase land to secure it for agriculture, and then provide those additional resources that would support agriculture, such as water and housing, etc. Such items could be significant benefit, I would say, to farmers, but that also only supports a certain segment. I think water infrastructure, we're hearing through the ECDEV strategic plan process, water infrastructure for farmers is a significant concern. And there's a desire for the CVRD to take a more active role. I'm hearing at the North Cowichan Ag Table as well, to take a significant action around supporting infrastructure for farmers.
Thank you. Hopefully that sort of answered your question. I think it's a multifaceted approach when you incentivize those smaller farms. It would not be something that's incorporated provincially, but could be perhaps lobbied for. Director McClinton.
May I just offer a quick anecdote? It'll be 10 seconds.
Okay, you got 10.
I personally know of somebody that moved from the city to a smaller plot. I asked them what they were doing. They said they're planting a garden so they don't have to pay taxes. And I just think there's an opportunity there to further incentivize, and I think that's something that staff could look at. Thank you.
Sounds good. I've got a garden. Director Ishtash.
Thank you, Chair. A little bit, I think, on the same direction that Director McClinton was going with regards to not so much, I see the benefits in anything that local areas or municipalities can do with regards to incentivizing it, but as I heard, we've got a bit of a land supply over availability, but I also, where I thought Director McClinton might have been going is what I reflect on with North Cowichan is that we also have the unfortunate side of the beauty of this area, and I see it in Saltaire and much of North Cowichan, that we're losing land to retirement estates and land completely that is prime land being pulled out of it. So, my question is, or request, I guess, would be when I heard that the shortage is actually the skilled people on that, it becomes more of an economic development lens. So that's why it's nice that economic development's presenting on this portion of it, investing into it. But again, I'm going to put on the North Cowichan hat on saying I really hope that both on the economic development side, that we could have some collaboration between ECDEV Cowichan and the Young Agrarians on what, to the North Cowichan ECDEV committee and also to the agriculture committee, because we're also rezoning all of our rural lands and our agricultural lands in our brand new zoning bylaw. So what do you need? What are your asks? What are your requests? And then I guess those would be the same requests coming back to the regional district here, because we're looking at RGS work possibly in the regional growth strategy. So definitely, now is definitely the time for the Young Agrarians group in collaboration with ECDEV Cowichan to build the ask list so we know proactively rather than reactively when coming to the final stages of implementing these plans. So incentives, I think, are a great idea. What could we do to incentivize, I guess, or allow maybe some of these people retiring here, coming here from other areas, want this beautiful quality of life and land, and it's becoming an estate. How do we zone it so that maybe they can still enjoy their estate, so that they can have accessory dwellings and houses there, but as well so that it creates opportunities for young agrarians to use that land and it doesn't just become an estate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I have Director Wilson and Abbott.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarification now, we're on R2, right, Barry? So we can ask the questions there. One of the things that came up just now, excuse me, and this is to do with succession planning again. We've talked about this before, where I think the comment was non-farmers buying farming land so no family succession is possible. And that's something that is happening quite a lot from what I can make out. We need, I think, would it be beneficial for landowners to have more options? And I think we're working on that, where we're saying to the farmers, okay, we're going to give you the chance to actually plan here for your families, where they can't do that at the moment because they're not allowed to build a secondary dwelling. Is that something that we can work on as well, so we can aid in this succession planning?
Are you asking about to the director, are you asking about the zoning bylaws for agriculture?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe, Bev, do you want to respond to that?
It is a fairly important aspect of this, where if we want to keep the families on the farms, then we need to help them do so.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. The last two speakers, I'm having a real tough time trying to figure out how it relates to the recommended resolution.
Thank you. I think
well, there's a certain amount of generality going on here, where we're talking about the farmers, we're talking about the young agrarians and how we can help them, and this is all interlinked one into the other. And I'm sorry I'm not being as specific as I should be, but this is an overall generality here.
Thank you. Ms. Suderman.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I wouldn't have moved.
Yeah, just to respond to the question about agricultural zoning, the community planning in land use services is currently consolidating and modernizing the zoning bylaw around agriculture. The question of additional dwellings is a highly controversial one, And I think if the electoral area directors have a position they would like to put forward to see what the modernized zoning bylaw should look like, they should put that position forward.
Thank you very much, and I would ask that, again, going back to what I've said before, the farmers have to be involved in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Abbott, to close.
Again, I'll pass.
Then we've closed. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Again, thank you both very, very much for your presentation. I apologize, Mr. Postings, for altering the agenda, but you'll have your time. We're going to take a 10-minute break. See you back at...
Do you have contact with the lawyer? Do you have contact with the lawyer? I was gonna say, send her the WebEx invite to come in on this one, so we don't have to wait for 18 of us to go.
Are we gonna go to this one?
To send it to her. Just one person versus 18, right? Send what? Send it to the open invitation.
No, because everybody has, well, tell them what you want access to, and then you're gonna close it.
Okay. No, well, we're gonna have to log out.
Closed?
No, say, right now. You'll hear it.
Just waiting to buffer. I'm gonna put it on yours. I'm gonna put R2 onto yours. R1.
Yep. To you.
There's your heads up.
There goes your afternoon. I need a drink, you gonna go get a whiskey?
So it'll be, we're gonna kick it to board this afternoon and it'll be subject to them approving their agenda as well.
Welcome back. Given time constraints, I would like Ms. Boyd to express what our intent is, please.
Thank you, Chair. We would like to refer R1, Report from the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, CVRD Strategic Plan 2023-2026, Q2 2024 Status Report to this afternoon's board meeting, and that would be subject, of course, to board approval to amend the agenda this afternoon, and then we would move into closed from now as we do have a lawyer waiting.
Moved by Director Stone, seconded by Director Segal. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. And now into closed.
Okay, motion to close. The meeting be closed to the public in accordance with the Community Charter, Part 4, Division 3, Section 90, subsections as noted in accordance with each agenda item, CSR 1, Law Enforcement, Section 91F.
Moved, seconded, and we do have to go to the other invite.